Good evening, Whisky Club members. It's Craig here, your head of whisky creation. I am in my Glasgow basement over in Scotland, and tonight I've been waiting for this one for a long time, I think over a decade, to sit down and have a proper chat that wasn't in the pub with a good pal, Heather Tillott, Distillery Manager at Sullivans Cove. Heather, welcome.
Thank you, Craig. What a great evening and morning for you. I'm sitting by the fire at home, and it's a bit different in Glasgow, I think.
It's a bit warmer. The rain has been warm this week. We're getting kind of tropical rain coming through, so nice. It's dark or darker than it should be. But yeah, we don't need our jackets or fires on.
Got mine roaring at the moment.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Now we've got members tuning in from all over Australia. For those that have tuned in at home, get your questions in for Heather. It's a rare opportunity to ask. The talent behind the Sullivans Cove distillation, blending, entire sort of brand program, I suppose. Any sort of spicy questions that you might have, so get them in the group chat. The best question will get a bottle of the Glenlivet, the next whiskey of the month, on us. So as I say, do get those questions in, and we'll throw them to Heather. So as I said, Heather, we've known each other a long time. I think you joined the whiskey industry about a year after I moved to Tassie. And as Scott put it when we were just chatting before the cameras went live, we were kind of looking over the fence at each other to see what was happening between Lark and Sullivans Cove. Right. It was such an exciting time to join the industry. But before we get into that, I think there's a lot of folk that are tuned in that would love to hear about your journey into whiskey, because I know that you came in from the winemaking space. So can you give everyone a wee bit of an idea of how you ended up in Tassie at Sullivans?
Well, I've been in Tassie now for 11 years, going on 12. So it's gone so quickly. Very much at home here in Tassie now, but I'm originally from the south coast of New South Wales. So I was born in a little town called Nowra, and have spent, much of my life around that Berry through to Jervis Bay part of the world. But in my very early 20s, I started working at a local winery in Berry called Two Figs Winery, and really small boutique winery, primarily Chardonnays, Chambourcin. We did some cool climate grapes as well, from Tabletop area. But it's a really interesting wine region, the Shoalhaven Coast region. It's not of great renown. It's not one of Australia's most well-known wine regions, but it's a really interesting climate in that it's right on the coast. It's a very, very strong maritime influence. And yeah, some really interesting wines. I really love the Chardonnay from that region, the Semillon. So I was there for a few years and fell in love with winemaking and with this whole, with the artistic element and the science. Just the fact that you need both to make great product, and product that moves you, wine that you can sense the place, the people, that's true terroir, right? It's not just the place, it's the interaction of the people in that place to bring something beautiful to the glass. But it's also this science as well, science and the artistic creative flair. So that I was completely taken with it and fell in love with it. And a few years in, moved down to Tasmania thinking, of course, Tasmanian wine, what an amazing cool climate, wine region, this is going to be amazing. And so started in the wine space here in Tassie, but very quickly, realized that Tasmania is this place where people are I feel like people are a little bit closer to produce, to the origins of produce. And there's this Epicurean part of Tasmanianness that's more than anywhere else I've lived or visited. It was quite profound. And I could hear people talking about Tasmanian whiskey, but from an Epicurean point of view, which I thought was super unique, right? In Nowra, forgive me, growing up in the 80s and 90s, like whiskey is for mixing and having at the North Nowra Tavern on the pool table on a Friday night, right? I'd never experienced fine whiskey and the true appreciation of spirits. So this was all completely new for me. And I thought, hey, well, when in Rome, totally curious. So I started visiting a couple distilleries, and immediately realized, oh, this is a thing. I seriously need to rethink my position on whiskey and spirits in general. And this is this incredible product, and I can see where it's coming from. It's coming from those fields that I drove past just the other day, and these people here, these humans are crafting it. It's not some huge scale product that has no heart and soul that you mix with Coke or Pepsi. It's far from it. So I was immediately challenged. I visited Sullivans Cove one Friday afternoon, did a tasting, and it kind of peeked out the back a bit. And I saw myrtle, our still. And I thought, that's so beautiful. Just this gorgeous copper curvy thing. I thought, I want to do this. I want to be part of this. And a week later, I had a full-time job, and I've been there ever since. So that was 10 and a half years ago.
That's amazing. It's really interesting, because I think, you know, your journey of coming from this little known wine region to into the whiskey world of Tasmania, I kind of almost did the opposite. I came from this huge world of Scotch.
That's right.
Where, you know, with Scotch, you still have the same passion as people do about Tasmanian whiskey, but you know, to your point, that almost connection with the maybe with the barley and the yeast and, you know, the casks, it's not lost. It's just more difficult to find. And then I moved down to Tassie, and I remember before I moved, I was chatting with a champagne producer, and they said the best Pinot grapes in the world come from Tasmania. And I was like, well, I've got to try the wine, and I think my own journey and my own experience was augmented by talking to winemakers. It's something we don't do across here. When we search for casks, and we'll definitely talk about casks for those watching. We have to come back and talk about casks. Right. But yeah, we almost fail to almost recognise the winemaker and the skill that kind of went into that. So I see this kind of weird mirror image of our two journeys that landed us in Tasmania.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, obviously, you see the passion, you see the connection, you see the sort of Epicurean nature, and we're sitting here 12 years later or 11 years later. How is that translated? How have you brought that kind of passion and knowledge that you saw on day one through with you, and how does it affect how you're making Sullivans Cove today?
Well, I guess like starting in the wine industry was really super formative for me as a creator, really, and as someone who appreciates Epicurean, very fine produce. And the things that I learnt there that I will take to my grave are patience and restraint. And I was told by a winemaker I admire muchly one time, the best winemakers, they know how to get out of the way.
Okay.
And that's just stuck with me forever. And it tells me a lot. It should tell us a lot that, you know, we're working with a product of agriculture, ultimately. I remember the light bulb when I had that with whiskey. Like, whiskey is a product of agriculture. It's not just cool steampunk looking like copper stills and stuff, and stainless steel fermenting tanks or whatever. It's actually a product of agriculture, and we should never forget that. And so part of what we're doing is actually capturing a harvest. We're kind of making jam in this hectic way, you know. We're capturing the harvest and a product of the land. And that does take patience. It does take restraint. It takes the ability to put your ego aside and think, I want a whiskey that tastes like X, Y, Z, and I'm the distillery manager and I can do whatever I want. It's not about that. We're working with a product of the land, and to be able to see, you know, the heart and soul of the barley and be able to bring it through multiple different transitionary processes, right? So that, you know, you're capturing the heart and soul of the place, of the people that live there, of the Sullivan's approach and philosophy, and producing something really beautiful in the glass. And that does take patience and restraint, and knowing when to get out of the way and when to just gently intervene. And I think that's very much summed up. I can't see it any other way, but that's a lesson I took from wine.
Yeah, it's beautifully put. We're ultimately working with nature as whiskey makers, right? So as you say, the annual harvest gives you a certain product. Your yeast suppliers give you a certain strain and a certain product as well. Your cask suppliers, I mean, you can go back 80 years and you're talking about who planted the trees, where they were planted, what type of oak it is. And then you've obviously got the season inside, so your colleagues from the wine industry come back into the picture, and you're almost piecing together this jigsaw of incredibly skilled craftspeople from all over the world. Which brings me, there's a question that Nick Redmond's put up. It's class. He's asking about, if restraint is your central approach when you're assembling a double strength, a double cask batch strength, as you've done for us, from only fortified and wine casks. How are you deciding cut points, final ABV? Like, how are you sort of putting that product together in your head, whether it's day one when you're distilling it, or day release -1 when you're blending it? Like, how do you juggle all those things to essentially elevate all that craft, but also make sure that it's got that fingerprint of Sullivans Cove?
Yeah, so that is a class question. Thank you. I think I always try to look at it through the lens of balance. There's elements we're trying to balance, right? There's elements of the barley coming through as spirit. And of course, we have very long fermentation. So 7 days of actual fermentation, and then another 7 days on top where we just let it sit. And lactic acid bacteria just go mental. They go mental, and you get this really lactic flavor profile, which really, really, really accentuates the malted barley notes, that biscuity, buttery malted notes. And you get lots of different kind of levels of added nuance in there, and a very full-bodied texture, which is really, really important. So, straight from the beginning, before we've even cut the spirit, we're just setting it up, setting the future up for success for a big, malty, full-bodied spirit. And then the cut points, obviously, you're going to be capturing that as well. But cask influence is really, really important, particularly when you're working with fortified casks. How you do a shave, toast, and rechar changes everything. You can disappear all of the tawny and the wine influence, or you can harness it really. And the toasting levels, in particular, will in many ways give you a length of time that you can work for maturity. If you do a super, super heavy toast and a ripper char, you're going to get a lot of extraction in the first 5 or 6 years, and it's very unlikely you'll be able to age that cask for 20 years. So there's lots of different things that we think about. So if we want to really capture the heart of, the cask influence, you need to be steady and you need to not be over the top. So lots of little decisions along the way, and in the blending space, it really comes into play because, the tawny casks in particular, they're pretty bolshy. They got some character, Australian tawny casks, they're big, right? They've often, got like this gorgeous dusty element. It's like bottom of a dirty old R.M. Williams boot in the Barossa, in a vineyard.
It's Blunston. It's Blunston in Tasmania. Come on.
Sorry, I'm from the mainland. I wear RMs. There's this awesome dustiness. There's obviously oak influence. There's that tannin structure, particularly from the French oak casks, and that really full, lashings of liquid Christmas cake sort of stuff. And to balance that with the finer nuance from Pinot Noir cask, Chardonnay, and there's actually some American oak Pera in this batch as well, which is, the American oak gives a vanillan breadth and almost a sweetness, but there's a very subtle tang, and if you find it in this batch when you add a bit of water, and it's just that classic dry Pera, but it's very easy to lose that in the blending if you go too heavy on the fortified. So there's so many different points. I think we mentioned earlier in the backstage that if there was just one thing that made a whiskey unique or a distillery unique or a batch unique, we'd all be. There's not much to do, There's so many layered decisions along the way.
There's a question from Richard I'm going to come back to in a second, but I think just for a little bit of context for those that are watching in, because I'm I'm conscious for a lot of people, this is going to be their first Sullivans Cove, right? Because it's almost always been this kind of legendary, mythical product that is very difficult to obtain. So for the Whisky Club to get some was, as I say, at HQ we were delighted. We also know that our members were very, very excited. But I think just as I say, for a little bit of context for those that enjoy a Scotch whisky, when we talk fortified casks of Australian origin versus fortified casks of, say, Spanish or Portuguese origin, one of the big differences is the Australian tawny casks that you're getting have often held wine for their entire life, for 80, 90 years, right? So you get this intense hit of fortified with a little bit of, if you just fill the cask straight away, you would get very little oak influence, which is why you go through the heat treatment processes, right? But you're dealing with very old oak that's had wine in it for a long time. Whereas in Scotland, the coopers will essentially craft brand new casks and season them for 2 to 3 years with the wine. So it's a different product, and it's something I think that makes Tasmanian whiskey and Sullivans in particular very unique. That you have this old oak, old fortified combination. Which brings me back to Richard Hallam's got a brilliant question about, you're using 4 cask types. When you're marrying them together, you talked there about deciding the proportions, but I think my favorite part of his question was there a particular cask of the 4 that you were surprised and you went, I wasn't expecting that, that flavor profile or that note to come out. Which of the 4 casks was the most surprising? Probably the Chardonnay.
Right. And that's something that we're finding a lot, is that, we think of Chardonnay and we think, oh, it's this lighter, it's a white wine, it's a table wine, it's not fortified. Most Chardonnays in Australia are stainless steel fermented, and so we think of just really bright, vibrant peaches, fun, light, acidic. And then, you translate that into whiskey, and it's what does that look like? But the interesting thing is, we get the Chardonnay casks and we shave, toast, and char them, and so you're heat treating the Chardonnay. So in a way, you're cooking the Chardonnay. And so you get, I know this is a little bit of a funny kitchen analogy, but it does get a little bit jammed. You get you take Chardonnay, so everything we know about Chardonnay flavor profile wise, and you just turn the heat up on it, and you end up with this very rich, almost treacly, like ripe rock melon, a little bit meaty almost. It's very broad. A very broad flavor profile that is not what you'd expect. But we've been playing with table wine casks for many years, and the Shardies are where it's at, and been exploring their blending as well over the last year or two, and it never ceases to amaze me. But with this batch in particular, it's quite prominent.
That's fascinating. One of the first wine tours I did was in the Tamar Valley when I got to Tas. Nice. And we walked in and I was chatting with I won't name and shame the place, but we were chatting with the winemaker who had just found a case of Chardonnay that had been sitting for 25 years in bottle, right?
Whoa.
Now, this is making sense for me now, because I remember when I was trying this whiskey on the tasting panel, I just thought there's something meaty that I really like about it, and I was wondering where it came from. But that wine, 25 years Chardonnay, was so far past its sell-by date. It tasted like smoky bacon.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Like, when with our Chardonnay casks, like one of the things that it's just that vision of whenever I smell it and taste it is, you get like ripe rock melon or cantaloupe and you wrap prosciutto around and chuck it on the barbie. It's like that.
Right.
So good. Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Now, there's a good question here as well from Judy. The double cask side of things. So obviously there's four sort of types of whiskey in here, but double cask is that 2 oaks? How does it work for Sullivans Cove? Can you just sort of explain that a wee bit from your own perspective?
Yeah, thanks, Judy. So double cask is it's not 2 casks married together. It's casks that are French oak or American oak married together. So double as in 2 types of oak. So when you hear double cask, you think American oak and French oak. So that's the cask, the wood type. but there's usually about 10 to 12 different casks that have taken portions of to create a double cask batch. And so we'll be looking at, there's obviously American oak and French oak. There's first fill casks, there's refill casks in there. There's tawny, there's often a Pera, there's bourbon, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and first and refill versions of most of the above. So it's quite a color palette that we pick from, but the term double cask is the two oak types, French and American. And I tend to see double cask as it's a product on its own, but it's a landscape that we work within, you know. And we are such a small distillery. That's, like, be honest. I mean, our bond store, we've only got 4,000 barrels, you know, from 0 age to 26 years of age, right? So that's really not many. It sounds like a big number, but in the grand scheme of things globally, that's really, really not. So we don't have the luxury of a bond store large enough to create a double cask batch after batch that's exactly the same. So for us, consistency has a different meaning. There's a flavor profile, and there's a recipe with a variance of the tolerance in there that we work within. But that's why I think of double cask as a landscape, is that it's a broader landscape. There's, you know, a hill, there's some trees up the top, there's a funky old house on the other hill, there's a little valley and a babbling brook and the ocean on the other side. You know, it's a landscape that we work within. And sometimes the double cask batches will err a little bit over here, might be a bit more fortified heavy, as is the case with the Whisky Club, you know, fortified and wine cask heavy. And sometimes they'll be a bit sweeter and more honeyed, you know, in that bourbon space. They're always going to have a mix of those casks, but I guess the character of each release and each edition will be sitting in a slightly different part of that broader landscape. But as I said, like, we don't have the scale to be producing exact flavor profiles batch after batch that you could run through a GCMS and they match. You know, we don't have that opportunity. But also, the way that our creation philosophy works at Sullivans is that that's not really our shtick either. And so, you know, we're very well known at Sullivans for single casks. And something that is so wonderful about single cask is that you can have 5 different bourbon casks or tawny casks lined up to each other, and they're all unique. And we can celebrate that batch by batch variance within the flavor landscape of French oak tawny or American oak bourbon. And so that's something that's really typically Sullivans and at the heart of what we do with single casks. And the philosophy is the same with our obviously very small scale blending program.
I mean, I think you've hit another nail on the head there in terms of, you know, like, I think about my time at Famous Grouse. We had 3 500,000 litre vats, right? It was very difficult. It was very difficult very difficult for me to screw up that recipe. And I think the other side of it, which was interesting, is even for Famous Grouse, every single cask, whether it was malt or grain, was nosed before it went into that vat. So even more difficult for me to screw that up. And that means that every time you pick up a Famous Grouse, it is the same. The constituents from batch to batch are different, but the flavour profile is exactly the same. But that's not what a craft product, you know, like Sullivans Cove, I don't think it should ever be that. And I loved your analogy about landscape. I used to talk about this analogy of distillation. Essentially, it doesn't matter what stills you're using, you're going to get flavor profiles that come out in a certain order, right? So you have a landscape that every distiller, no matter what their still size and shape is, it's the same. There will be different features that are accentuated based on those stills. And then the cask is ultimately, what window am I using to look at this landscape?
That's right.
So
that's
American
really
oak, American oak's going to be focusing on the sort of the vanilla, the tropical, the fruity side, and French oak's going to be looking at your kind of darker side of things. And obviously, if you've got peat, then there's some really
a whole other ball game.
Crazy stuff happening over there. And being able to combine those two together to capture that landscape, it's such a good analogy. And I think, you know, those that are watching will hopefully realize that the beauty of Sullivans, whether it's a single cask or it's a small batch that you and the team have put together, you're trying to paint a particular picture.
That's
Now
right.
here at Famous, like with Famous Grouse or with Macallan, I was trying to paint the same picture with different paints every single time.
Yeah, which is incredible, and I respect that craft.
Yeah, but
immensely. I think that is an art in and of itself.
It is, but the envy that I would have from your side is you can paint whatever you want. Like that's the beauty of Sullivans Cove, and
that's what's most terrifying.
Well, it is. But I think as a drinker, as long as you have an artist that you can trust, which is yourself and the whiskey making team, absolutely, almost guarantee anyone that's opened their bottle of double cask batch strength who's had a taste is already sitting there going, I wonder what this artist is going to put out next, right? Yeah. So it's a wonderful analogy, and I suppose that brings us to the symptom of all this work that we've described, and that is the award side of it. A lot of people see Sullivans Cove and they see awards and they go, well, that must be great whiskey. But what we're trying to get to here is, why is it great whiskey? And the list of world's bests that you guys have, obviously 2014 put you on the global stage.
Yeah, but, that will always be the biggest. The most well known in that respect, and right. Yeah. So.
It was incredible. It was the year I came down to Tassie and everyone was going mad because Sullivans had just won World's Best. And then you got World's Best Brandy and then World's Best Single Cask 3 times in a row. And then the list on your website, folks should go and have a look at it. It's ridiculous. And that is a symptom of your approach, right?
Yeah, exactly. And awards are lovely. It's nice. It's a really great, acknowledgement that it feels like, okay, we're doing something really well. That's awesome. Like that feels good. But it's certainly not why we do things. It's certainly not the cause of why we do things the way we do. It's far from it. Sullivans was founded. It's such an odd founding story for a distillery. Seriously, like old mate Rob, our founder, he was an entrepreneur, property developer chap. He was on a trade delegation in Japan in the early 90s. And he's sitting in a bar in Ginza in Tokyo, and he's watching Japanese businessmen drink Japanese single malt whiskey with local seafood. And it was a thing. It's a done thing. And he realized, whoa. Hobart has a seafood. We've got some of the best brewers in the country. And he was thinking about opening a brew pub on the waterfront. He's like, whoa, no. Stop that. I'm going to open a distillery on the waterfront, and we're going to make a whiskey designed to pair with food, with seafood, Tassie seafood. And so that's how Sullivans was founded. I mean, what the heck? Name another distillery. That's not what you do, typically. That's so unconventional of why you want to start a distillery. And so the entire approach of the founding of Sullivans and the setting up of, the equipment and what kind of equipment was bought. I mean, he ended up buying commissioning one to be made in Tasmania, but a 2-spec Charente Alembic cognac still. It's so bizarre. And I love this story because it speaks of someone who's not a whiskey person, and he'll tell you that if you chat with him. But he's got this vision. And he made it happen. And inadvertently what he was doing was setting up this really unique spirit, incredibly full-bodied. We've ended up doing, brewing strains of yeast, really, really long ferments, the lactic stuff, a French type still, really long ferment, maturation in full-size casks, in cask dilution, and very, very slow drip dilution. You end up with this big, unctuous, full-bodied spirit that has become so notorious. And I think that some of the coolest things in the world come from just seeing things from a different perspective and then having the chutzpah to see it through and make it come into reality. That's innovation. And it really set us up. And then, coupled with, Pat McGuire coming in the late 90s, early 2000s to Sullivan's journey, he really, really set that creative philosophy of patience. And the whiskey's ready when it's ready. And that's that. It's all good, no worries. He set that in stone, and I guess I came in at the right time and had a very similar approach. And so we've just kept it going, and it's paid off well. And I guess, as you say, the awards are a symptom of that.
Yeah, 100%. It sounds like he really sort of dug into that Epicurean philosophy, right? And I remember seeing it in Tasmania and just thinking, this is incredible. Like, I go down to the pub and I'm surrounded by some of the best cider makers, brewers, distillers, winemakers in the world. And right. I suppose this brings us to the subject that everyone has tuned in for. I know that there's some people who've already opened their bottle. There's some people that are holding off. Eleanor, I really hope you do get to open that bottle at some point. But can you just talk everyone through this incredible batch strength release that you put together, exclusively for our members, because it is quintessentially Sullivans Cove, but it's just got this incredible twist on it. So if you could just chat everyone through the whiskey that's hopefully in their glass.
I hope it's in your glass, but I'm absolutely okay if you haven't opened yet. Make sure it's a nice occasion when you do. Yeah. So it was really, really awesome. I'm so stoked that we've been able to finally work together like this. It was a really great journey with the team down here. And one of the things I enjoyed most about it was actually understanding from the Whisky Club team, what does Sullivans mean to you? What is Sullivans to you? What is double cask? Because it's all good and well to create a cool whiskey together. I mean, we can do that. That's easy. But it needs to mean something to all of us. And the resounding feedback from the team at the Whisky Club was, that full-bodied, that full-bodied weighty spirit with that creamy, slippery mouthfeel. So, I mean, tick, we'll aim for that, but also that fortified. That's so classically Sullivans, the way that we do fortified. And we got on talking about wine casks in general. And we kind of ended up in a place where we thought, all right, we want to really highlight fortified casks and wine casks. So on that whiskey, on that double cask landscape, that's where we ended up. So there's a few different parcels of fortified casks in there: French and American oak, and a Pera, of course, another Australian fortified wine. There's the Chardonnay in there as well, and Pinot Noir. So they're the highlighting features. So it's really quite prominent. You get that beautiful dusty layer, the tawny, and you get some fun little tang, as I said, particularly when you add some water, because it's up there. I think it's 55.4%. So it can take some water, and it really opens up quite beautifully. But you've got a really gorgeous jammy layers from the Pinot Noir, and the Pinot Noir gives us really gorgeous, like dark red, blackberry sort of jam notes, even blueberry syrupy stuff. But the Chardonnay gives you a lifted version of that, almost a tropical, rock melon meaty thing. And there's American oak, French oak in there, so you do get a nice vanillin base to balance out the tannin. It's stunning. Really happy with it.
Yeah, as I said, for me, the like thinking back to when I was having a taste of this on the panel, it was that meatiness was the big tick for me. It was like, this has got body without being, it's not in any way, shape or form an off note. It's a viscosity, right? I see you used the word unctuous earlier. It's the perfect word for it.
Yeah.
The other thing that Sullivans carries for me, and it does it in such a unique way, but the spirit is quite, I would say, like fresh cut grass. It's got that lovely herbal aspect when it's young, and then when that develops and gets and gets older, and I think the American oak definitely helps with this as well. You get this like hint of spearmint, which is just it's a huge tick for Sullivans. It reminds me of really old school Bunnahabhain and Glenkinchie in the Scotch world, but then, as you say, from the unique still, it's got even more body and more viscosity. So bringing this all together, it's 100% Sullivans, and the craft that you've put into blending this and the skill that you've put into blending this has delivered something unique. I don't know how you're gonna, if you can paint this picture again. I think this is such a benchmark for the Whisky Club. I don't know how we're gonna approach it in the follow up.
We'll just have to do another one.
Yeah. Well, I think on that note, there's definitely people asking if we're going to do stuff again, but I will let you know next time I'm down, and we should definitely have a dig through the archives and see what we can come up with.
Awesome. We can come up with some pretty awesome stuff, I reckon. I love that you've noted the mint note as well. Like that's something that often find that in our tawny casks. Really, of a certain age. But you'll find it in any of the older Sullivan's releases. It's something that just shifts in the mid-teens, and it's really nice. The mint palette really pops. Often pine needles as well. It's a thing that pops up. Yeah, super cool.
I think it's a breakdown of spirit, but we'll not get too far in the weeds.
This could get cray real quick.
Yeah, I know, and I'm not even in the pub, so I'll avoid going into the really geeky stuff. I'm just gonna have a quick scan to see if there's any other cool questions before we sort of round up. If anyone has any questions, chuck them in. The other thing as well we were chatting about is you guys, your visitor centre. If anyone gets to Tassie, what can they expect from a visit to Sullivan's? That's probably something to.
You can expect smiling faces, my friends. We have
changed since I was there then.
Oh, as if we've never had them. So really lovely space in the visitor experience. The team downstairs will welcome you very warmly. There's a concierge space. You go through this, what's affectionately known as the tunnel, to walk upstairs into a beautiful lounge area. Tastings is where the tours begin. So you can either just hang out, enjoy whiskey, or go for a tour as well through the production areas, and the team do a really great job. But at the moment, we've got a distillery exclusive. You can only buy it at the distillery. It's a winter release. It always coincides with Dark Mofo, the Tassie Winter Solstice Festival down here, which is really cool. It's an awesome a blend, a marriage as well. It's very, very small. I think it's 223 bottles.
Wow.
So it's a really, really cool ode to winter in Hobart.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we're open 7 days a week, and we'd love to have you all visit.
Yeah, it's definitely worth, if you get down that way, it's definitely worth heading out to Cambridge and checking it out. Now, I think final question has come up. There's a few people that have asked similar questions, but Eleanor is asking, and I think this is a nice way to round off, because it goes back to that original vision for Sullivan's. But if you're going to match this double cask with seafood, what are you going for?
Oh. I love this, our whiskey in general, but this whiskey in particular. If you can just go find some Trevally and pan fry it in butter.
Right.
Do that.
Just do that.
Just do that.
Nice and simple. Nice and
simple.
I hope everyone's getting ready to go out on the boat tomorrow, catch some Trevally.
That's the way.
Good stuff. All right. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure. Let me just have a look here. We have best question was won by Clinton Duff. So your next Wattam, your Glenlivet is on us, Clinton. Well done. And a huge thanks to everyone that threw questions in here for Heather. It's wonderful to see, and some of the stories about Sullivans Cove as well. I'm going to go back through the comments and have a read of them, because again, there's just some really cool memories that have been created in Tas. Final thing from me, Scott's asked me to mention that we've got some events next week coming up for members. So Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne, you're going to have Bill and Chris, or I think just Chris in Melbourne, but Bill and Chris in Brisbane and Sydney for a lark tasting. And also this weekend is a catch up with Dr. Bill from Glenmorangie and Ardbeg. So really cool chance to catch up with more Tasmanian icons and one of the sort of the behemoths, the big beasts of Scotch whisky, who's hanging around Australia. I don't know why he's trying to avoid summer here, but he's definitely
he's come at the wrong time.
I don't know what he's done wrong, but it allows me to get into the blending lab, hopefully with Gillian, and see what we can put together for the next Glenmorangie while he's away playing.
Enjoy that.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, Heather, look, as I say, it's been far too long since we've sat down and done this. Really glad that we could catch up for the last sort of 40 minutes. Great to chat. Everything Sullivans Cove, everything whiskey, and Whiskey Clubbers members. If there's any other questions you have around Sullivans Cove, Tassie Whisky, this release, Whisky in general, just reach out to the MX team and they'll point the question to the right place. But Heather, on behalf of myself and the entire Whisky Club team, it's been a pleasure and cannot wait to do this again.
You too.
We'll see you next time we're in the same time zone.
That sounds good. And thank you, everybody, for joining in this evening. It's been a pleasure. Great questions.
Perfect. Thanks very much.
Awesome.